What is up, guys? Devin McDonald, Bratton Sports Performance. I wanted to talk to you guys today about the different start positions that we use in our linear speed training and sort of how it is we go about using them and why we apply them. So when we're looking at an athlete's program, we want to do two things, right? We want to set an athlete up for success so that they understand how to achieve an efficient acceleration. But also, we want to challenge that athlete and sort of microdose an overload in positions that they may not be 100% capable of achieving that optimal acceleration out of. And that's going to force the athlete to adapt and then overcome those positions and set them up for success, regardless of what position they may find themselves in their competition or practice. So as we look at our different start positions, we have our tall falling, which is a position that's going to allow the athlete to succeed very easily because there's almost no steps in getting into a good acceleration position. So the athlete simply just falls forward into that acceleration position, not worried about manipulating or changing their center of gravity other than just a simple fall forward. And then we continue to add steps, making it a little bit more challenging for that athlete to get into that good ideal acceleration positioning, but it sort of allows that athlete to continue to use their athleticism to achieve it. So then we go into an athletic falling position where we then lower our center of gravity. So we're adding one step beforehand. We lower that center of gravity, then the athlete proceeds to fall forward into that acceleration position. Then we get into our staggered start where the athlete has a split stance, again dropping their hips just a little bit lower than that athletic start, again allowing that athlete to produce a little bit more force as they get into that position. It's a little bit more difficult than that athletic falling start, so with each start position, we're going to look over here and sort of get an idea of what it actually requires as we're looking at impulse and force. So impulse is the amount of time that it takes us to produce the amount of force required to get going, where force itself is the equation being mass times acceleration. And as we're looking at this, our force isn't going to change in a given training session, so we need to change the amount of acceleration required. So as we look at our start positions, as we lower that center of gravity, the amount of time it takes for us to get out of that position is increasing. So our impulse is going up and our force is increasing because we're needing to produce more force. We are needing to accelerate a longer amount of time to get out of each position, which is why as we drop our center of gravity and get into these deeper positions, it is now more difficult for that athlete to overcome that impulse and that force. So once an athlete is then able to get into our optimal acceleration from all of our positions, meaning that they are very efficient in the way that they overcome impulse and force, then we are able to attack a multiplanar approach. So obviously in sport, it's not always ideal in having a perfect linear lane to attack. So we need to take a multiplanar approach and make sure that the athlete is capable of getting into this ideal acceleration through multiple planes. So with our multiplanar approach, we have different start positions where an athlete is able to get into our acceleration position laterally. So we have our directional step and our crossover step or crossover run, where your center of gravity is up closer to what a staggered start would be. And then we have our lateral top-down kneeling, so our center of gravity is much lower. So again, we have to overcome a lot of force and impulse to be able to get up and out of that position. So when we are looking at how this applies sport specifically, a directional step or a crossover step, think of a baseball base runner who needs to steal a base, right? They're in an athletic position and they need to take off as fast as possible and get to that base, right? We need some force production and some impulse in order to allow the athlete to optimally use their athleticism to produce some force, get into that acceleration angle. We don't want them to have to use gravity to fall into that position, but we don't want to put them down into a position for them to fail, if at all possible. But when we're looking at a lateral top-down kneeling, this is so that an athlete is prepared if they do get into a position, into a difficult position. So think a running back gets through the initial hole at the line of scrimmage, and now they're at the second level, and they need to make someone miss at that second level. They're going to take a long step here, get down into an unideal position, and have to make a cut out of that position. So this is preparing the athlete to get out of those positions that may not be ideal in competition. So if you have any questions that I did not go over, or you want an even deeper look, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, have a great day and look forward to the next week's Coach's Corner.